Hi, all. Thank you for joining us in another session of Gentle Chair Yoga with Keith Beasley. Before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge our friends of the Brookline Library for sponsoring this program and programs like it. I also wanted to thank our community partners, Brookline Interactive Group, who will be streaming this program through Facebook, YouTube, and local cable channel 3 on RCN and Xfinity. This program is also being streamed through the library's Facebook page as well. I would also like to read a quick disclaimer before we begin. Participation in this online yoga program could result in injury. Not all exercises presented here are suitable for everyone. These exercises are not intended to substitute for proper medical care or advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from participation in this program. Here's Keith Beasley.
Get the curves in the spine. The one down here is going in the lumbar spine, and then the one at the thoracic spine between the shoulder blades is going that away, and the one in the neck, the cervical spine up here, is going the same as the lumbar spine, so the curve is in. And they're small curves and not big curves. So we want to, and those are the natural, those are the way that we came that way when we were born. And ideally, the bones fit together most efficiently when the curves are in place, which is one of the reasons why they're so important. They keep the bones in the right position, which means that the discs in between the bones are in the right position, or as good a position as they can be. So we're sitting up nice and tall. Think about those curves. So there's a slight tipping of the pelvis forward. And we're going to start out by just rocking the pelvis slightly backwards and forwards. So we can do this by the abdominal muscles, using the abdominal muscles. So as we inhale, we soften and relax the abdominal muscles. I'll take this away a little so it's easier to see. And the belly softens a little bit, and the back goes in slightly, and the hips rock forward. So it's a tilting in this direction. And then as I exhale, I'm going to firm the abdominal muscles, contract the abdominal muscles, and let the pelvis rock back slightly. And it's a small movement. You might notice the movement underneath you, where the sitting bones and the bottom of the buttocks touch the chair. So it's sort of like this rocking action at the very base of the pelvis, but it's small, it's not big. If you do it too big, you end up with too big a curve in each direction. So we want a small change in curve back and forth. You could even rest your hands on the belly if you wanted, and you'll feel, as I breathe in, everything elongates here. The curve goes forward, and then as I exhale and I firm up the belly, the skin shortens here, and almost like we talked about a zipper before, like I'm a little zipping my abdomen up. It shortens. And then we rock back and forth with that. And all the same time, we're still sitting up tall, and the face and the head are straight ahead. So they're sitting on top of the shoulders in a neutral position, the head and the face. And we want to feel balanced on the feet. So feel the bottoms of the feet and feel that they feel even on the floor. And you can adjust your feet. Some people might like their feet out a little bit more, and perhaps your feet turn out slightly. Try not to turn them out a lot. I think this would be too much, and we don't want to turn them in. So ideally, they're approximately straight ahead like this. And inhaling and exhaling. And let's add a little bit of movement. So we'll inhale up and exhale, let the arms float down. And this movement, the movement in the shoulders, combined with the breath, combined with the extension of the spine, begins to give us this feeling of lightness. Almost like we're going to float up out of the chair. Although there's only a little bit of downward effort in the feet and the legs here. Enough to support us. So maybe 20 or 30% effort in the lower extremities. You can adjust the size of the circle so that your shoulders feel okay when you do this. We don't want to feel like it may look nicer, or you may think it looks nicer to make really big circles, but if it bothers your shoulders, then they're too big. So try making them smaller. So in yoga, we talk about ahimsa, which is a Sanskrit word, and it means nonviolence. So we want to be nonviolent to ourselves. And let's bring the hands together in front, and we're going to go back the other way. So we drop the hands as we exhale, and then as we inhale, we turn the palms up and we lift up. And you might notice that the chin goes up and down a little bit. And you might notice that the pelvis is rocking a little bit forward and back with the movement. Little rocking forward and back. I'm not trying to do that really, but I'm just sort of letting it happen. Letting it rock forward and back, letting the chin go up and down. But only if it feels natural. We're not forcing the movements. And then we're going to come back to the center like this and take a few breaths. Inhale and exhale. Remember, you can sweep the arms out and open at really any level you want. They could be down here, down low, or they could be medium, or they could be high. The elbow's no higher than the shoulders, though. The elbow's no higher than the shoulders. And you could even swing the arms back and forth, sort of a snake the arms back and forth like this. But we are trying to do it in time with the breath. So if you do that, be mindful that we're inhaling and then exhaling as they come together. And inhaling and exhaling as they come together. And then bring the hands like this. So I'd like to start with a continuation of a meditation. And we've been working on this as a way to bring rhythm to the breath. And by bringing rhythm to the breath, we bring some rhythm to the mind, or we bring some evenness to the mind and the thoughts. So I've been working from this book, Pebble for Your Pocket by Thich Nhat Hanh. So that we were working with breathing in, I know I am breathing in, and breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Let's try that a couple of times. So we repeat that to ourselves softly as we're breathing in. So exactly as we're breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. And remember, the benefit of that is that the phrases, they're very similar in length. And so we're tying the breath to a specific amount of time. It's about 3 seconds, I would say. And the idea is that as we learn to make the breath more rhythmical, everything starts to calm down, especially our mind. And the second part of this, there's actually several parts, but the part that we'll add is as my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. So let's try that. So as we breathe in, we'll repeat in our minds, as my in-breath grows deep, my grows slow. As my in-breath, breath, my out-breath grows slow. I'll try that a few times. So please repeat that to yourself. As my in-breath grows deep, feeling that nice deep breath down in the belly, and breathing out, or my out-breath grows slow. So we let the out-breath get nice and calm and slow. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. What's really nice about this phrase is that not only provides that rhythmical component, but it also gives you instructions. So it starts to remind us that as we breathe in, we want to feel this fullness in the breath without forcing. So it's very important to do it naturally. And that's true with remember, everything that we do here in this practice, everything that we do today is no forcing. Forcing is not yoga. It's actually, I don't know what you call it, but it becomes more like an exercise. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. Exercising is great, except this isn't an exercise class, it's a yoga class. And that's one of the main differences is the mindfulness and the focus in yoga. But exercise is really good. It's great if you could do both. You know, if you're able to do an exercise class of some kind and also do yoga, really good combination. And you might want to write those down. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. And then if you practice them a little bit, you'll remember them. And they're nice and easy. And so you can add that to the first one, which I have trouble remembering all of them at once. So breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. So you could work on one or the other, and then when you feel comfortable and you've been sitting for a while, you could start with the first one and then move on to the second one. And we'll keep adding as the weeks go on, and you'll have a longer list. Eventually, it's almost like a poem. They become like a poem in your mind that you repeat. And sitting up nice and tall, and let's start to warm up the body a little bit more. So we're going to rock from side to side. I should say the arms too. So as it's getting a little colder, we haven't had frost, I don't think yet, that I've noticed, but it's definitely much colder at night. I think it was in the 40s anyway last night. It has been. So we need to get a little bit going, a little bit more, and see if you can keep the knees going straight up. Sometimes they wander out like this. See if you can lift them straight up. So we talked about that, I think, recently, about when you climb stairs. Notice what you do with how you lift your feet up, whether or not the knees go out to be able to reach, to get your foot on the next stair. it's a little bit more challenging to keep them straight. It requires a little bit more work here, and also a little bit of on the inside of the thighs. You have to keep everything compressed a little bit here, or firmed up. Firmed up is a better word, because we're not really compressing it per se, like this, and then adding the arms. And this is one where if you wanted to, you could move away from the back of the chair, assuming you can still support the spine. So on all these, you'll have a choice today of whether or not you use support or whether or not you are away. There's no support behind you. If you start, usually what happens is that we get tired, and that after a while we need to use the support in order to maintain our good posture. So think of this class as practice for a good posture. And this, of course, is how any habits that we have in life, we establish beginning with small steps. So we start out with doing something a portion of the time, a relatively small portion. And then over time we build. And after a while, that whatever it is, be it good posture when we sit, because we spend so much time sitting, most of us do anyway, whether it's watching television or talking on the phone or at the computer, we need to train our body to sit up straight when we're seated, and to notice when we're not, because after a while, this slumping over like this is really hard on the back. So we want to avoid that. So we're sitting up, and let's do the joints in the body. Start to warm up the joints. So start by rocking the feet and opening and closing the hands at the same time. So you might try doing one thing first, and then once you get that feeling, focus in on how does that feel it, and then add the other one. Whether it's the hands first, then the feet, or the feet and hands, it doesn't matter. It's a little more challenging to just jump into doing both of them. And then begin to feel. So when you come up on the balls of the feet, feel the balls of the feet, feel the evenness from the big toe to the little toe side. Same thing with the heel. Come down evenly on the outside of the heel and the insides of the heels. And the same thing with the hands. When you close the hands, think about evenness on the index finger side and the pinky finger side. And we're gently wrapping the thumb down, very gently wrapping the thumb. Very gently wrapping the thumb. And then we're going to spin around. And for this one, we can lift the ankles up. So you may want to have support behind you, although it's certainly an extra challenge to be able to lift the feet and not use the back of the chair is challenging. I always recommend that we start out with something that we feel comfortable with, and then if you want a little more of a challenge after you've worked on the other thing, try it for a brief time. And then see if you can make the two go together so the rhythm's the same. So notice that the fingers and the toes are pointing in the same direction as they go around, and then change directions. And this will probably require going a little slower so that you can match the speed on the hands and the feet. So really focus, perhaps look down, so that if you hold your hands down like this, you can actually superimpose them over the feet, and you'll be able to see them together, moving together. Almost like, imagine this. Imagine there's connections, strings or wires between each one of the fingertips and each one of the toe tips. So you can really feel a connection. So the palms are soft here. Soften the palms and see if you can keep that connection between the fingertips and the toe tips. And that's going to require us to bring our attention to the tips and the tips on the toes, and then go the other way. And I know for me, it's much easier for me to feel my fingertips, to bring my attention there, more challenging to bring it to the tips of the toes. And that sort of bringing our attention to an area of the body is something that you might do in Tai Chi or Qigong. So there's some practices where the focus is on being able to feel parts of the body. Let's rub the hands together. The hands are a little bit cold. So get them a little bit warm, and then do the backs of the hands too. And take a few breaths. And exhale. Inhale and exhale. And if to create a little bit more heat, you want to breathe slightly faster, make the movements just a little bit faster, you could. So notice they don't become speedy movements, but my rhythm is a little bit faster than it would be if it was warm out. If it was warm out, it might be more like, and now it's a little nicer to be a little bit, so maybe twice as fast. But the most important thing to do is to figure out for yourself, what rhythm do I like? What keeps me warm? If you start to get cold, bump your rhythm up just a little bit. So remember to start small, because usually what happens is if we do it just a little bit, we start to feel a difference, but it takes a few minutes. And then resting the hands, and we're going to lift the feet up. Lift the leg extensions here, leg extensions. And it's nice to use the back of the chair. So you may need to wiggle back so that your back is nice and tall. So you're sitting up nice and tall. And one of the things that you may notice is that as you extend the spine up, as you think about lifting the spine up when we do this exercise, it actually becomes a little more difficult to stretch the hamstrings here. So imagine that if you're stretching the up part of this body, of the torso, and then you add the hamstrings on the back, you're stretching more of the body. So we've talked about the fascia system in the body. That's the layer of tissue that surrounds all the muscles, and it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. So when we stretch one part of the body, the fascia up here, it's already pulling on the whole system. And the system only has so much flexibility. So it's a nice thing you can see if you're really extending. If you start to slump a little, it becomes easier to extend. My legs are definitely easier to extend when I let myself slump a little bit. So if I sit up a little taller, I can't lift my leg as high. And I'm not forcing. So even though I'm sitting up taller and I'm lifting, I accept the fact that I can't lift as high. I don't extend quite as much. And then go ahead and come back down. And let's do the the shoulders. We're going to roll the shoulders a few times. Let's do our swimming. And we're going to go slightly faster with our swimming rhythm today. Just like with the other rhythm, a little bit faster. And then we're going to go the other way, reaching out and across and allowing the body to turn. If you wanted to, you could even count here. You could go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And sitting up nice and tall, bringing the hands together and taking a few breaths. And this time we're going to wrap the arms, beginning with the elbows. If that feels okay. Perhaps wrapping the upper arms. If that feels okay, perhaps wrapping the deltoids, the tops of the shoulders. And if that feels okay, perhaps wrapping the arms a little bit more so your hands might be on the shoulder blades or the tops of the shoulder blades. Remembering to switch. So as I cross one arm over, the next time I do it, I cross the other arm on top. So I'm inhaling and then exhaling. And inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Now let's hold the arm out like this. We're going to start with our eagle arm. First, I'm going to just bring the arm up, and the other arm is going to come under like this, the forearm, or you can go as far as even the elbow being over the elbow being in the crook of the other elbow like this. Just with the arm straight, just for a moment, take a couple of breaths. And as you exhale, relax the shoulders. And one more breath. And relax. Remember to keep the length in the spine when you do this. So inhale and then exhale. So now the other arm, we're going to hold the other arm out and then swing the other arm so it's pointing straight out. So sort of a crisscross, almost like a cross shape with the arms. Inhale and exhale. And do that twice. Inhale and exhale, and then come back down. And then bring the hands up like this. And just rotate the belly here. So we're going to start by moving, think about moving the elbow back, and then on the other side. So if you want to be able to feel as if there's this diagonal stretching. So as I move my elbow back, it's almost as if there's a lengthening from the opposite hip up through the where the heart is in the chest, back to the elbow. Almost like, so if you had an elastic band and it was attached to the hip, think about moving it back like this, and then the other way. And we're feeling some movement here in the ribs and down in the belly. I want to feel movement in the ribs and the belly. And then bring come back down and take a couple of breaths. And give a nice sigh. Oh, a sigh of relief. And roll the shoulders. And then the other way. And we'll slide forward in the chair. And feet are a little bit wider here for support. And perhaps the feet are a little bit further away from the chair. So instead of a 90-degree angle here, it's a little bigger angle behind the knee. And that's going to give us more support out in front as we circle. We don't want to fall out of the chair. And we want to have enough room behind us. We want to have enough room behind us in the chair that we don't bump the back of the chair. So if you want to make this more challenging, you can take the arms or the hands and take them off the knees. If you need support, if you're having trouble keeping the spine lengthened, we use the arms for support. Almost like I'm pressing my hands, almost like a push-up. Let's actually do a few push-ups. It's a good idea when we do this movement, we sit up nice and tall, and then we fold forward. And notice that I'm not looking down at the ground. I'm not rounding like this. I'm looking forward. So that the bending is coming down here at my hip, and my torso is still long. I'm not rounding like this. I don't think we're gonna in this class ever round our back like this. We just don't usually do that. Maybe when we do cat and cow, when we do the cat pose, there's this rounding like this, but we don't do that. We keep the spine lengthened almost always. And so folding forward, and notice that as I look out across the room, it helps to keep the spine lengthened. If I start to look down, my spine rounds, and that's actually normal. That's what's supposed to happen, which is why we look straight ahead. And I can use my arms to push me back up and to help with do some of the work. So even coming down, I can use my arms as a brake. And now use that same idea. When you circle around, if you'd like to use your arms, as you circle around, think about pressing the hands and extending the arms to help lift you up. And then as you start to come down, using the bending of the arms to control your descent, so that the arms work in concert with the abdomen and the back muscles. So they're working together. Let's change directions. It's like they're supporting one another. And if this is too easy, you want something that's more physically challenging, you could take the hands away and just rest the arms here. And if you try that, you'll probably notice that it's harder on the back, but please don't hurt your back when you do this. So if your back complains at all, make sure you have support from your arms and hands. And you could even, if this is too easy, you could even let the arms swing around like this. You could even let the arms swing overhead. And let's go back the other way. You'll definitely feel it more in the belly and the back when you do this. And remember, on all these things, we don't want pain. We don't want real discomfort when we do these exercises. Let's come back down, roll the shoulders. We'll do the neck next. We don't want pain and discomfort. So before we do the neck, let's massage the ears. So start by working the ear lobe on each side. We very gently squeeze it and pull it very gently. I'm going to move closer so you can see. This does not hurt, or it's not supposed to hurt. It's so gentle, in fact, that it feels nice. So I'm very gently pulling the ear and giving it a squeeze. It's like my fingers are my ear is slipping through my fingers. The ear is slipping through the fingers. And then sitting up nice and tall, and now we're going to lift the chin up and let it float down. So lift it up and let it float down. You could even think about floating, maybe floating up like a cloud, and then floating down like a balloon. If you're filled with air, you let it go, and not a helium balloon, but a regular balloon, and they kind of float down slowly. They float down slowly. So going up and down. You can think about whatever process or whatever situation where you feel some lightness and softness rising and falling for the chin, or to support the chin. Remembering not to drop the head backwards. We can let the chin come down in the front like we're bowing, but try not to compress. It compresses the back of the neck if we drop the head way back. And then sitting up nice and tall, and then going from side to side. Keeping the face in a neutral position, so the face is tipping over, but it's still pointing straight ahead. So I'm trying not to let it go down or let it go up. I keep it neutral like this. And you can use your hands like this. It's a nice way to keep some evenness, some neutralness in the face. Inhaling up and exhale down, soften the neck. Inhale up, one more time each side. And then soften. You might notice that I'm letting my body bend a little bit with the neck. You have a choice here. You could even practice with keeping the torso straight and letting just the neck bend. And if you try the two different ways, you'll notice they feel different. So you have to sort of decide, do I feel like I'd like something to be a little more perhaps holistic, in the sense of when I lean like this, my whole body bends a little bit, so I'm getting more of a unified movement for my whole upper body and neck, whereas this focuses more on just the right around here, right in the neck and the shoulders. You might find that if you're bending more holistically or letting the whole body bend, that the body bends with a little more ease and also tends to make us a little warmer because it's spreading out and there's more muscles involved. So it's keeping, making us, we have larger and more muscles. When they're working and moving, we generate more heat. And let's come back and let's walk a little bit like this. Walk a little bit like this, coming back to the belly. Thinking about some firmness here. So we started before, we were letting ourselves kind of rock easily back and forth like this. Think about now slowing down a little bit, and perhaps the body right in the center is stabilized here, and you're lifting the knees up. So remember to start small. Start small. And especially if you're new, it's challenging to lift the knee up without moving the whole rest of the body. So you could even rest your hands like this, or you could even put your hands on your belly. You'll be able to feel the belly firm up as you lift the knee up. As you lift the knee up. And perhaps the next step is, as you lift the knee up, you could lift the arm up. Seeing if you can keep the shoulders or keeping the torso still relatively stable. You're going to get a little more movement because the shoulder's going to need more movement to lift the arm. But coming up like this, maybe going a little slower. So really focusing, especially on the abdomen, and you may need to use the back of the chair. That's okay. Slide to the back of the chair. Use it to your advantage here. Use it to your advantage to help support the spine. Perhaps you want to close the eyes. And we bring our attention inwards, focusing on the belly and the breath and the movement. And then coming down. And then let's come back and let's go a little fast, warm up a little bit more like this. A little more movement. And letting the body turn a little like this. So this is really similar to, remember when we were moving the elbow back like this? Now I'm marching and I'm letting my elbow go back at the same time. and then come back down. And let's take a couple of breaths. So I think we covered most of the joints in the body. We did the ankles, the knees, the pelvic area, the hips, the wrists, the fingers, and the neck. As we continue the practice, if you need, if you're getting too warm, take off a layer, and then you can put it back on later as you start to cool off. So that's something where we're practicing when it's colder out, it's important to stay warm. And that when we start to cool off, before we get cold and the muscles all get cold and stiff, we want to put more clothing back on to keep the muscles warm. And then at the very end, we're going to add more stuff for our Savasana, but we'll do that in a little bit. We're sitting up nice and tall, and we're gonna switch to our standing poses now, or you could do these seated as well. So we're going to start with tree pose. Actually, we'll start with mountain pose because we always start with mountain pose. So you may need your chair or chairs, and remember, mountain pose. We have the feet. We're feeling the feet on the floor. Feeling the feet connected with the floor and using that connection to extend the legs up. There's firmness in the buttocks, firmness in the belly, lifting the front ribs, extending the back of the neck, rolling the shoulders. Try doing the shoulders like this. So we're standing up nice and tall, and then roll the shoulders up and then down. Being mindful not to let the belly stick way out. So we need to keep firmness here. We lift up and around and keep firmness here as we do this. Notice I'm not sticking my chest out like this as much as I'm firming the belly and lifting the ribs up. Ribs are lifting up to extend the spine. So you can try that a couple of times. And we're extending the fingers down. And try wiggling the toes here too. Wiggling the toes can be a nice thing to do. It's hard to see in the socks, but they're wiggling down there. And if you have shoes on, it's the same thing. Wiggle as best you can. And then standing up nice and tall. So now we're going to shift over to tree pose. And try patting one leg. Like this. This will be our straight leg. So this leg will be pressing firmly into the floor. The quadricep contracts. The buttock muscles are squeezing together. Say about 30% effort. So not full effort, but we want support. Same thing with the belly. Firmness and support, but not, we're not so firm that it creates tension. We want firmness without tension. And then we're going to open the groin here. Let's try that a couple of times. 1, 2, and open the hands when you do this. 3. Notice when you open the arms, it's a little bit like opening the groin. There's this opening here in the front and the opening in the groin. Almost like, imagine there's a connection, right? Remember the strings that we did with the fingers? Imagine the strings are now between the hand and they're helping to lift the foot out. And let's do the other side. So standing up nice and tall. Come back to mountain pose first. Get centered, evenness. And then we'll do the other side. So remember, we're turning the thigh out. So the knee is just going along for the ride. We're not turning the knee, except by virtue of the fact that I'm turning the thigh out. Because remember, knees do this. Knees only, it's a hinge joint. It only does this. It's not made to twist. Please don't twist your knee. So we turn, do that a few times. You could, even if you wanted, if you take your hand and find the the groin right here, you can feel when the leg turns out, you feel this opening right here. And that way you know that you're turning the thigh out. And then we can add the arms. Remember, this leg is strong and steady. The nice thing about having two arms is if you needed to, you could even go do it like this. You could have one hand like this and do the other one turning out if you needed some balance. And then thinking about the buttocks too. We want firmness back here in the buttocks. And if you're in any doubt about that, when you turn the legs out like this and you're firming them up, just poke at them. You'll feel if they're firm. And come back. Now let's do tree pose. Standing up nice and tall, pressing the feet down, extending the spine up, and then we're going to go ahead and turn the thigh out. And then you could leave the ball of the foot on the floor like this. Most of the weight's on the straight leg, or you could bring the sole of the foot on the inside like this. And compacting the hips. So we'll keep this buttocks and the hips firmly together. And then you can add the arms. Find that drishti point and keep extending the spine up. You can always have a hand, fingertips on a chair if you need it. You could also work with the wall right behind you. If you have a wall that's open, something to provide you with some information. And then when you're ready, you can step down. And then let's do the other side. So standing up nice and tall, extending the spine up, and then turning the leg out. And if you want, bringing the sole of the foot on the inside of the leg. And to remember, if you're doing this seated, it's pretty much the same, except you're seated in the chair and the sole of the foot is probably on the leg of the chair. And then extending the arms out. So lifting the heart. And raise your gaze, raise your thoughts. Raise your gaze, raise your thoughts. And then go ahead and come back down. And let's swing the arm. Just watch out for your chair here. So if you have if you're using a chair and you start to swing your arm, make sure you don't bang into it. So the weight is shifting. Let's come back for a moment, right to the middle like this. Give a little bounce to the legs like this. So it's a very slight bounce, like a micro bounce, like this. You can even add the hands to it like this. So notice that they're only moving a little bit, maybe a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. Same thing with the knees. And I'm doing that because I want to get the muscles so that they are, not that they're twitching, but they're more responsive. This is making them a little bit more responsive so that when I stand up nice and tall and I straighten, I have more, my muscles are woken up a little bit. So they hopefully work a little bit better. And standing up nice and tall. We're going to do triangle pose next. So triangle pose, we're going to step the feet apart. So I'm going to move my other chair back, and I'm going to take my socks off just because they're slippery. So the nice thing about wearing shoes when it's cold out is you could potentially wear shoes when you do your standing poses and you don't have to worry about slipping. Assuming they're sneakers, assuming they don't slip. And then we're stepping our feet out, extending the arms out, and then folding to the side, letting the hand come down, and then coming back up. So we'll inhale up, and then exhale down. Inhale up, and exhale down. Letting the hand come down a little bit. So to make it more challenging, if you widen the stance, the more you widen the stance, the more challenging it becomes. And also, so the further down that you go, the more challenging it becomes. So that isn't to say that you should widen your stance or go further down. But if you're looking for more of a challenge, if that one's way too easy, continue a couple more times. And remember, if you're doing it seated, the shape is the same. The shape is the same, and the movements are really similar. It's a little bit easier to go further down the legs like this. You could, even if you want, you could keep the legs straight like this or bent. So there's a lot of choices, and it's nice to have choices. You could even experiment, and some days you do it one way, and some days you do it another way. And then coming back up, sitting up nice and tall, or standing up nice and tall in mountain pose again. And so if you're seated, you're going to slide to the edge of the chair. And if you're standing, go ahead and grab your chair like this, or I should say rest your fingers on the edge of the seat of the chair, the edge of the back of the chair. And we're going to step back. So try that a couple of times. As you step back, notice how when you extend the leg back, that the gluteal muscles tighten. They firm up. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for engagement of the gluteal muscles and an opening here in the front of where the groin is. It's not really the hip. The hip joint's back here, but we're opening. Normally when we sit, it's like this. So notice in this position, this area is the angle is very small, and the muscles here shorten when we sit like this. When we sit in a chair like this, everything shortens. But when we do this, they all lengthen. And that's what we want. We want to counteract the sitting. So we do that by stepping back and lengthening the leg. Notice that it goes from slightly bent to lengthen. At the same time, it's important to lift up the spine. So I get this nice curve along the front. And actually, I'm just gonna move a little bit because I think you can see better. You can see the curve better, this curve along the front with the lighter shade behind. And then try the other side, same thing. So there is a slight lift of the heart and extension of the spine, similar to when we were seated and doing those circles. And if you're seated in a chair and doing this, you want to just stay to one side. You'll want to work on one side first rather than alternating. You could even, if you wanted, I'm going to turn around this way. You could even, if you wanted, just work with one side like this, standing as well. You could also not use the chair. It's a little harder for balance. You could even lift up one arm like this and do it at the same time. So as I extend my leg back, I'm lifting my arm, lifting the heart. So this whole part is opening. You could also do both arms if you wanted. So each one of these gets progressively a little more challenging. So stick with the one that you know you can do, and then if you want, you can add the other one later. So if you want to do the two-arm one, work up to it over a period of time. Practice this one, just extending back and lifting. Notice that I could even bend my knee slightly on the front leg and then straighten the leg to help get me some lift. So I get this nice feeling of lifting. Notice I'm going up and down slightly. Making sure, though, that the knee is going straight ahead. Don't let it go out to the side when you bend it. And let's sit back down. And if you did take off your foot coverings, you might want to put them back on now. We're going to stay seated now. So, and remember, we want to stay warm. So hopefully that made you a little warmer, that exercise, the standing ones. Usually standing poses are warming. They warm us up a little bit. But as we sit down, you might need to add some additional clothing. So sitting up nice and tall, we'll inhale and exhale a couple of times. I'd like to go back to eagle arms. We did that. So we did that in the beginning, but we only did the first part of it. So we're going to hold one arm out like this, and then we're going to bring the other arm under. And this time you have the choice of keeping the arm straight like this, or if you want, you can bring the other arm up and intertwine if that's accessible to you. So a couple things you can do here is if you have some sort of cloth, or actually anything will work. This is just a scarf. So I would, I was holding out like this. I'm going to have to put the scarf like this. And reaching and holding the scarf like this is a nice way to work. If you can't interlace the fingers. And then you can always start to walk the hands a little closer together. And over time, you might find that you can get the fingers to touch. Remembering to breathe here, softening the shoulders. And then go ahead and release. We'll do the other side. So bring the arm under. Elbow goes in the crook of the other elbow. And then we can wrap the hands like this. So I have one side. This side is much easier for me than the other. And take a few breaths here. Soften the shoulders and relax. One more breath in. Then exhale, bring the arms down. And then swing, inhale, exhale. Opening the heart here. It's a little counter to the eagle arms that we just did. And then bringing the hands down. And then we're going to come into our Savasana. So sitting as comfortably as we can. And if you need more clothing, please put it on now. So we'll continue. We've been working with our Savasana beyond the normal class time, just because officially we have to end by 11:30. So we have about 3 minutes or so. So we will begin together, and then we will we'll complete our Savasana. You don't have to, but if you'd like to continue after the class ends, just let the class end and continue with Savasana for as long as you like. So let's inhale and get a little bit more movement. Letting the hands circle around, lifting the heart. Noticing if things feel a little more open now, especially the shoulders and the back. Especially the shoulders and the back. And then go around the other way. And you might want to be a little bit smaller with the movements here as you begin to wind down. You could even start larger, and then as you do the movements with the breath, we're inhaling up and exhaling down, start to make the circles get smaller, like a spiral. They're spiraling in until they finally stop right in front of the heart. And then sitting up nice and tall and finding a spot to rest your hands wherever is most comfortable. I happen to like mine right just intertwined right in my lap. But some people might find it more comfortable to have the hands on the thighs. Some people might even want to work like this, with the touching the either index finger with the tip of the thumb or the middle finger with the tip of the thumb. It really depends on what you're used to. Letting the eyes softly close. Each time we inhale, we feel a little taller, a little lighter. And each time we exhale, we keep the spine long and allow the feet and the buttocks to feel grounded in the earth. If you want, you can use that mantra that we did at the very beginning. You could use either one, actually. Let's do the second one together for a moment. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. As my in-breath grows deep, my out-breath grows slow. So please continue if you'd like, and I'll see everyone next time. Namaste.